Economic inequality. Over the last 75 to 100 years, the division of wealth has spread over all aspects. Whether it's race or gender or the average CEO, the nation has been divided, and 2020 is the year to fix it.
There's definitely an income diversity and gap in Bloomington, as there is around the country. Again, in my lifetime, we've seen a very bad trend of kind of the hollowing out of the middle class. Our minimum wage is way too low, and a stratification of people by income and by assets too. That's not good for our community, it's not good for our country.
I think that some people are doing quite well in terms of the economy, but I think that there are a lot of areas that are struggling, and I'm concerned about the income inequality, that's the gap that's widening between the haves and the have-nots.
The ratio of white wealth to black wealth is like 10 to 1. Certainly a legacy of discrimination in our country, our community. The ratio of men's wages to women's wages is way out of whack, and also a legacy of discrimination. I do think it's an economic crisis, how disparate, how different the wages and the wealth are in our community and in our country.
Would raising the minimum wage help solve economic inequality?
It wouldn't hurt. I think it'd help to a certain degree because it hasn't been raised in quite a long time. And if we look at what the minimum wage was traditionally, as far as with the cost of living and what it is with inflation, it should be close to $10 an hour.
I think raising the minimum wage is one solution. It's really complicated though, because we don't necessarily know what all the expenses are that companies have to deal with. So you have to really do a lot more research than we've done to understand how that would work.
Under Indiana law, a city like Bloomington is not allowed to set our own minimum wage. So we have a 7 1/4 state wage, minimum wage. That's way too low, way lower than it has been over time, adjusted for inflation. And people who work need to be able to live not in poverty.
So I think if you raise the minimum wage, you'll see businesses who do that as an investment, as really not really a incentive to motivate more profit, but an incentive to help your community. I think those jobs will slowly disappear, and the kids won't have any opportunities, or those low-wage, unskilled workers won't have the opportunities to learn. So no, I'm really against raising the minimum wage, other than the standards that's been put in place for those raises.
I worked shoulder to shoulder with undocumented workers who often worked harder and hardest for the least amount of money. I was on my feet working 12-hour days with no structured breaks. I didn't have health care. I wasn't being paid a living wage. And I didn't think that I deserved any of those things. Because that is the script that we tell working people here and all over this country. That your inherent worth and value as a human being is dependent on an income that another person decided to underpay us.
And we have lost the fair deal that we used to have, where if you worked and got a job and worked steady at a job, that you would live a decent life. That deal has eroded dramatically, and that means our strength as a community and as a country erodes dramatically.
But I think there's opportunity to rise in those low income wages to be able to raise and sustain your family.
In terms of the global economy, I ask you to take a look with me where we are today in terms of the global economy. Today, we see massive and growing income and wealth inequality.
There are studies that show a gender gap and a gap with wages in terms of racial equality. These are things that on an individual basis, it's easy to ignore, but if you look in aggregate at what's happening in our country, gender inequity and racial inequity continue to be a problem.
We're the world's top 1% now owns more wealth than the bottom 99%.
Well, a little bit of Governor Holcomb's workforce development strategy of skilling up workers here, that everybody has a chance at some of those higher salaries based on the skill sets they have.
We need to keep pushing for equality along all metrics.
"2020. It's the year to focus and try to get this fixed."